Hello and welcome to another edition of Behind the Investigation. I am investigative reporter Rachel Polanski and I am joined by my colleague Sierra Cummings. Thanks so much for being here.
Good afternoon.
So you have been working on this story, so interesting, about stolen homes. And I think when the viewer hears this, they're like, wait, what? But your house really can be stolen from right under you. So why don't you talk a little bit about this and tell us about your most recent story?
Yeah, it really can be stolen, and it is so much easier for thieves in Georgia because of a small state law. Some would even call it archaic. But this has been such a fun topic for me for all the right reasons. Obviously, some of these property fraud crimes are really egregious. But what makes uncovering the disaster so much fun is because it just really is comical. It just seems so obvious that this is fraud, that this is theft. And if not for each family's grief, you really could spend a lot of time laughing about it. Even the victims themselves are like, this just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why police, law enforcement, local law enforcement is not pursuing this. So really, we found out about this originally from a homeowner, a viewer watching, who said something like this happened to him. He went to go check on paperwork related to his house, and he had learned a deed had been filed against his home in DeKalb County, and he couldn't figure out what happened. So that was the first time we did this story last fall, and since then we've uncovered case after case of a Metro Atlanta family saying their home has been stolen. It's really frustrating. This example, wow, it's really egregious, and it involves a family who ends up losing their sister, and after the sister passes away, her property is stolen. Take a look at the story.
He said it was a crazy story, that there's no way this could be.
The police officer said that.
Yes.
An alleged property crime so absurd it'd be comical if not for Brenda Booth's grief. She's mourning her last sibling, sister Claudia Marie.
I'm an orphan. I felt abandoned. It was really, really hard.
January 2022, Claudia died. Since her health had long been declining, her sister says death was expected. But the complexities that followed in this case, Brenda never anticipated.
Yeah, it's been a doozy.
With help from attorney Daniel Calamaro, Brenda filed paperwork in probate court to handle all the assets of her late sister. Among the assets, Claudia's Clayton County home in the city of Rex.
It's usually a fairly routine process. You gather the assets, you gather the debts, you notify the creditors, and you make your disbursements to the family, and away you go. That did not happen here.
When they tried to sell the sister's home, they learned the house was no longer hers. County clerk records show Claudia's signature on this deed, transferring the home to this private company, EBA Capital Inc. You see Claudia's name right here, signed the 26th day of April 2022. Just one problem. Claudia was already dead by then. She'd been dead for 3 months, according to her state-certified death certificate.
She can't sign a deed 3 months after she's died.
Real estate attorney James Clifton.
How did she do that?
Right, unless she's Lazarus or this company that supposedly received the deed from her sent a witness and notary to heaven, there's no way that this lady could have possibly signed the deed.
Clifton argues there's a sharp jump
Growing exponentially.
in these cases because there are few state protections.
What they're doing to clients like mine is it's horrible.
As we uncover, to file property paperwork in the clerk's office under current Georgia law, there is no requirement to show ID or prove you own the home. In effect, anyone can file deeds on your house. This veteran attorney claims police are failing to investigate.
Because the general feeling right now, especially from the victims, is that this is a crime fraudsters can get away with.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel that way. Attorneys feel that way. We report it to local law enforcement. They tell us that there's nothing they can do about it. They say it's a civil matter only, even though there's forgery, even though there's fraud, which are crimes.
We visited the home to find the new owner.
I'm looking for the owner of the house.
The man there would not tell us why he was at the house, saying he was neither the owner nor did he know anything about the private business EBA Capital Inc. State records show the business is licensed to Emmanuel Clark.
We're calling about the property in Rex, Georgia.
He did not respond to any of our texts or calls. Clayton County officers tried to get answers out of him too after the family filed an official police report. However, when they couldn't verify his identity after talking on the phone with him, they did not pursue arrest warrants for theft by deception.
Do you feel like local officials have taken that seriously?
Not at all. Not at all. So it's been really hard. You don't have anyone to call and say, hey, am I doing this right? What do I do with this? How do I do this? You're just by yourself.
Wow, that is really awful. Such a heartbreaking story. So, what do police have to say about all this?
So, long and short, Clayton County sent us just a couple words via email saying they don't have any information, but that they're, quote, looking into this situation, which is really frustrating for the attorneys involved, the family that's involved, because it seems pretty cut and dry. That attorney jokingly said, unless, you know, this company who now owns the home, unless they sent the deed up to heaven to get her to sign it, unless they sent a notary up to heaven, unless this woman is Lazarus, there's no way she could have signed her deed over. So it just seems like really one of those obvious cases of deed thefts, or at the very least, just a really simple, straightforward allegation. But again, Clayton County, you know, we understand that law enforcement don't like to share all of their information when there is an active investigation, but we're really unsure of like how active this investigation really is, because they've only told us they have no information to share.
Right. So let's talk some takeaways. What can people do so this doesn't happen to them?
This is a big thing, because really in the interim, it kind of feels like your hands are tied, because the option that I'm going to give you, it doesn't stop property fraud from happening. It doesn't stop deed theft from happening, but it does get you ahead of it. So our state, Georgia, we have a property fraud registry. It's called FANS. It's run statewide. We've got all the information on atlantanewsfirst.com and wherever you find your stories related to the same topic, deed theft. We always hyperlink how the homeowner, the viewer, can go sign up their property, where you essentially just put your first and last name in, your information, and anytime someone tries to file paperwork on the home that's attached to your name, your private information, you'll get an alert. You'll immediately know, wait, somebody's trying to do a deed transfer, they're trying to file a separate deed, and at least that puts you in a position where you can seek some legal assistance. But again, it doesn't stop the property fraud. And that's really in the interim. What we really want to see in the end, according to these attorneys and the families that have been victimized in this kind of scenario, they want the law to change. It seems like a really simple fix. As we've highlighted in each story, really what's happening at the core of this property fraud is that to file a deed on a property, the person filing the deed does not have to prove they own the property. They don't have to submit any kind of identification. So really, in effect, anyone is able to file deeds on your home. And that's the frustrating part of it. It just seems like, well, we have to have ID for pretty much so many other things, if not everything else. And so that could be easy fix.
Right. So talking about easy fixes and next steps, what do lawmakers have to say about this, and can something happen this legislative session or maybe next legislative session? What are you thinking?
That's always the interesting part, to see how the people in positions of power respond to the story. Sure. We've talked to clerks who say they've really wanted this ID requirement a part of the law. And so since our stories, we've talked to lawmakers who say they want to see some action take place in the legislative session. Here's the thing, it's twofold. Originally, after our reporting, a Democrat lawmaker, Representative Mandisha Thomas, she introduced a bill, House Bill 888, which would mandate an ID requirement should you need to file a deed. At this point, that bill has stalled. It is Democrat backed. But since then, there is a bill on the Senate side, SB 474, which is related to predatory practices in real estate and property fraud. And that bill had already been introduced like within the last week or so. And what they decided to do, which that was a Republican backed bill, they decided to take portions of the Democrat back bill in the House and put it into SB 474. So now that new bill has the ID requirement in it, and just this week it did pass the Judiciary Committee, which was just a hearing. So it's got another committee to go through, and then it could possibly go to the Senate floor. And TBD, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We know crossover day is coming up pretty soon, and
Sure.
you want your bill to get to the appropriate chambers in time. But really, it's just a waiting game to see if that bill actually becomes law.
Sure, and we are talking about the Georgia General Assembly, so if a bill is going to have a shot, it definitely helps when it has that Republican backing.
Yeah.
Whenever we do these behind the investigations, I think it's really cool to talk to the viewer about how we found the story and, take them behind the curtain. So tell me, how you started digging into this and just, give them a little of the behind the scenes of this one.
We appreciate when our viewers reach out to us, whether emailed through our investigative tip line, and tell us they've got a situation that they want us to look into. This is probably one of my favorite viewer tips, because I guess the viewer had emailed me, and Rachel, we get so many emails, so I could have possibly overlooked it. But he went to my general manager, Eric Strader, shout out to him, went to my general manager, called him, left him a voicemail, said, I'm trying to get in touch with Sierra Cummings. I've got this story about property fraud. I really, really want her to look into it. My general manager forwarded me the voicemail. I searched through my emails to find out if this homeowner really did reach out to me, and he did. And then we went from there. I called him back. He had documentation, and on the surface, I thought, wow, this is a really weird case. And the more digging we did, the more we realized, oh, wait, there's a systemic issue here. The law needs to change in order to minimize the people that are subjected to these kind of crimes of property fraud.
Right, and that one story has turned into a series that, all of you can watch right on our website, atlantanewsfirst.com. Go on over to the Investigates tab. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can find all of your podcasts right here or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also stream Atlanta News First all the time on any of your streaming platforms. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.